Okay, good morning. Good morning, everyone. I'm Filipe.
I'm Sébastien. Hello.
So, me and Sébastien, we are founding partners of LIMSEN. We are really excited to be here today. So, also good morning, everyone that's watching us live remotely. And we are here today to share our experience managing a large project with BIM. So before we go into that, just a quick overview of our story. So we started out in 2017, shifting from being architects to BIM managers, working as freelancers. That's how we started out. We didn't know for sure if we could sell the BIM management service as a product, and that was our really big question by then. So very quickly, the year after that, we started doing some BIM implementations on design companies. And the following year, we did start our company for real, and slightly and slowly moving into the BIM management services towards the clients and the developers. On the following year, we were awarded our first appointment in Portugal, which in fact was a really turning moment for us. And after that, we started to being handed other jobs as a result of that recognition that we start to gain in the market. So 21 was basically the year we started to found the basis of our company in terms of new hires, or in terms of also building our internal quality manual, which is, by the way, something that we obviously keep retouching every time. And today, me and Sébastien, we are undertaking this BIM certification by BRE on ISO 19650, which is something that is taking place. And also, it's worth noticing that we got our first overseas client, which was also very important for us. So in a nutshell, our company today, LIMSEN was ranked top 5 in the best small and medium enterprises in Portugal. We were proudly founding members of the Portuguese chapter of Building Smart. And we are currently working on long-term contracts, which is very important for us. So for the future, 2 big challenges that we are facing today. First of them, providing consistent services as the company scales up. Every company passes through this struggle, I guess. And then transforming our personal skills and experience into a self-operating business. Probably this is the greatest one of them all. So this is us. And now the project itself. Just a quick reminder, this is a huge project. It hasn't been made public up until this point, so we cannot show you fancy renderings and that kind of stuff. We will just be uncovering the BIM side of the process. So key figures about this project. Very quickly, over 300,000 square meters. This is broken into 5 plots and parcels. A lot of different teams, over 50 companies at this point, 7 architecture and 8 design engineering companies as well. So this project is being managed by 2 project managers. Alongside them, we have a huge cost manager as well, helping the process. And today we have 45 models being coordinated. Obviously, this will keep evolving as time goes on. Another interesting feature is that we have a huge point cloud survey of the whole area being under intervention, which has been proved very useful up to this point. We'll go into that in a short while. And lastly, so today we have 243 members actually collaborating on the common data environment. So I hope this doesn't come as a severe shock to many of you, but this is a fairly large project in Portugal for our Portuguese standards, okay? So how does this basically started out in terms of BIM management? We are using mainly Plannerly and BIM 360. These are the main 2 platforms. Plannerly, of course, to do the BIM management process. The actual work takes place on BIM 360. Then we use Navisworks for a lot of coordination, a lot of quantifications as well. We spend a lot of hours in Revit, of course. Also Recap Pro. A lot of visual, also inspection with Enscape. And lastly, we've been putting to heavy test Excel's Power Query to manage and merge a lot of data. Just a final note, we have another in-house developed tool which is called Bit2Brick. It's probably similar to something that the previous presenter was showing. We'll go into that in a short while as well. The BIM management process, we made it happen basically on Plannerly. So I think everybody knows more or less what Plannerly is. It's a cloud-based tool. We bring all the members into this platform. We can basically today not live without Plannerly, because going back to a dead PDF file, it just wouldn't make any sense for us. So it has been very useful for us. On Plannerly, what we do, obviously, you have to have a BIM execution plan. We do it also there. We can benefit from the fact that all the team members, they can comment and post a few requirements directly on this BIM execution plan. This is just to give you an example that everyone does post a few comments every now and then. We'll make that a part of the BP in the end. It's a very interactive process in that sense. Two main features on any BIM execution plan, of course, standards, methods and procedures, and BIM uses. So let's look into those. Standards, there's hardly any project that we start or that we set up that doesn't use ISO 19650 standards. So in other words, we have it on Plannerly, of course, and then to make people and make all teams use this standard and to make it happen, we just, I don't know if I can point it with my mouse, then we have a huge project-based pick list, which is available here live with a link. And then every designer gets to pick this exact standards for each project and for each plot. It's been also working very well up to this point. And about the BIM uses, of course, I think just by looking at this set of BIM uses, I think everyone agrees it's basically a very ambitious set of BIM uses. The majority of them comes from the part of the owner. So at one point, it was more the case on our side to maybe downgrade a little bit those BIM uses and try to negotiate with them in order to the design teams being able to deliver those, and so that they don't be overloaded throughout the process. And the funny part, and this is a side note, the funny part of this is that when you begin these discussions, obviously everyone realizes that when you open a model from any designer, this is the typical disclaimer that those models will give you. So they're saying basically, we don't allow for any BIM uses. This is just for internal coordination, that sort of spirit. So that makes for a very interesting discussion all the way. Also in Plannerly, we usually add some, I wouldn't call it a standard, but it's something that we developed to help designers as well. So if you want to have clean quantifications in the end, let's tell them, well, maybe it's a good idea to model these specific objects within these categories or in this specific way so that you can get a clean model length or model area and so on and so forth. So we also include those regularly on the BP. And lastly, everybody knows basically what an LOD matrix is. We also have a lot of these. The tool itself is very powerful in that sense. So assigning the right LOD to each person and to each milestone. And also on top of that, as you can see here, specifically asking for information requirements on specific design milestones. So in the end, this is the icing on the cake, really. You can have a PDF file. It's funny in that way, but you can have a PDF file to which all key members do a sign-off in the end. So we know for sure that on a given date, that BIM execution plan was agreed by everyone. So moving on, I was talking about the common data environment. We are already, and in reality, having a lot of designers working on the common data environment, but beyond those designers, every sort of consultant and project managers and various people, they are all actually working in this common data environment, in the sense that there is no information being exchanged outside of this CDE. What also is worth mentioning is that as the project begins, everybody has passed through this. Of course, maybe like 30–40% of the time of a BIM coordination process is playing along with coordinates. So today we can say this, we are proud that the 45 models we've been managing so far, they are all pretty well geo-referenced one to the others. So that means that we can easily append on Navisworks or whatever, any file from any plot, from any design team, and it will always fall in the right place. So that's also worth mentioning. So yeah, I'm handing over now to Sébastien, who will show a little bit about what's happening under the hood. Okay.
All right. Good morning again, everyone. So at last, a sexy image of the project. Sorry, it didn't come earlier. So those are actually the 45 models divided into the 5 plots, and with the point clouds around it of the entire city. We'll get back to the point cloud again. Sorry, not the entire city, the entire area around the project. So this is actually a close-up to one of the projects, which is already in detailed design phase, and this is the federated coordinated model with the structural and the MEP. So what you are seeing here is after an 8-week coordination period after the detailed design. So when we got all the models, well, we followed up the models all during the journey, but at the end of the detailed design, there was still a lot to do in the models, and the coordination was still lacking a lot. So we found at that point 500 different situations. I'm not talking about clashes, I'm really talking about situations, a lot of nodes of infrastructure that had to be coordinated before going to tender, because then the contractor would, of course, take profit of that. So this was the timeline actually for those 8 weeks of coordination, which we initially planned as 6 weeks and turned out to be 8 weeks in the end. That coordination was done by discipline and by level, so going from the basement to the ground levels, and then the next part was on the fit-out project, which is undergoing now. This is how we are distributing the issues and the situations to the designers. So during that coordination process, weekly, there was a meeting with all the designers. Everyone was working live in the models, and when I'm saying live, there was no releasing of data. It was really the models connected live during that period. So the designers were sometimes calling each other on the phone and saying, okay, can you synchronize? I want to see how, and really discussing that. And we were distributing the issues. They were marked as answered by the designers, and then we were closing them week after week on 500 different issues through the project. This is already an image of a ceiling on the ground floor already with the coordinated MEP, with the plumbing and the HVAC already into and the electrical also with a good coordination level. So right now we were discussing the 3D coordination. 5D coordination was also being used during the project. So this is actually the workflow on how quantification is being processed, at least on the architecture part. Uniformat being for the entire plot, the classification system that was agreed with everyone, with the cost manager, etc. Of course, we wanted to make this a transparent process because we are specialists. We can work with Navisworks, some other companies can work with Revit, etc. But if you go to the owner, to the project managers, etc., they don't have the tools to check for the quantification and to discuss them with the contractors that are tendering for the process. So we decided to develop the tool based on top of Forge, and I'm going to show the video, that would connect the Excel files that we receive from the designers to the actual models that were produced, and that would link the quantification. So now we're in the Forge, or we're in the BIM 360. We select one of the models. This is the architecture core and shell model. On the left side, and this is preloading the information, that's why it's thinking a little bit. On the left side, we have the Excel file that we receive from the designer. When we click on one line, we have all the quantification that is associated with that particular item of the BOQ. And it's actually bidirectional. So if we click in one item in the model, then it goes to the line in the BOQ. Then if we click back onto that line, it will show us all the elements that are associated with that particular line in Excel. Of course, all the modeling guidelines had to be taken into consideration for this to work in the end. So we had to follow up on that. We can do a search. So now I'm looking for interior partitions. It will show the interior partitions in the Excel file. I'm selecting one line, and it will show all the interior partitions that are present in the model. Coming back to the cloud point survey that was done of the entire area of the city, there was a huge purpose about that because all the underground infrastructure had to be surveyed, and there was no precise survey of that in the municipality and everywhere else. So there was a huge survey that was done also to the underground, to the big collectors and plumbing collectors. And that showed that we had a problem in one of the plots that was cut by one of those sewers. So the entire footprint had to be redesigned because of that. And that was found early in the process. Also, point clouds will be used and is being used for site verification. So this is the excavation of one of the plots, which is undergoing, well, which is finished already. And that allowed us also to see if the project as designed is fitting into the plot. And we've discovered some surprises, not very severe, but at least we are sure to move on safely. So this is the analysis that we did. When we are on the red, that's bad. When we are in the green, that's okay. The red means around 20 centimeters deviation from reality. And that can impact on the top, that can impact the parking spaces. So that will be analyzed in the next phase. Also, part of our job as BIM managers for this entire process is to report to the client, to the project managers, etc. So the people that are above us and that coordinate us. So we actually give some plain language comments on how the models are progressing. We are grading the models with some analysis that we do. We take all the points in the BEP and we grade those points in the BEP for all the models. So for an example, the architecture model here is going well. We are also keeping a clash trend report of the entire project since the beginning to the detailed design phase. And the funny part here is that we can identify those ups and downs as project milestones. Somewhere over there, it climbs a lot. It was a huge project change. Then the project was being developed in detailed design and everything was, the clashes were growing. And then after the detailed design phase, on the 8 weeks coordination process, that's when they start shrinking again. So this is an example of the before and after. We have all those 500 situations documented, tracked and documented, and we can easily see what was before, what's after. In some cases, many companies have had to work together to solve one issue. For an example, because of pre-stress, some MEP had to go around, etc., and to be reorganized. And that's why at the end we decided to make a report on cost savings for the client. So we identified 500 situations, more or less. We have an estimated resolution time on site. And that estimated resolution time at the end gives us 1,600 days of delay in construction, which is not real actually, because you have to divide it by 5 to have a simultaneity factor. And at the end, you get almost 1 year that the project or that the construction site could slide. So if you multiply it by the site construction cost per day, then at this point, we're getting more or less 4 million euros in savings for the owner. Just as a conclusion, this, of course, is not possible if you are not backed by the owner, if you are not backed by the project manager, if you don't have everyone on board, if BIM is not being followed up properly, and if you don't have the people and you can't communicate with the people properly what you intend to do with the models. So if the designers don't understand what's going to happen and why you are using their models, this is not going to happen. Well, thank you very much.